FNCS semifinals is this weekend, and we again have so many teams splitting up right before it. We have new teams forming apparently like Muzz and Mero. We now have Reed and Ritual splitting up. I'm going to talk about which teams are real and which ones are just baiting. But I'm also going to talk about why these team swaps are even happening, because it goes way back to the $1 million LAN event we have taking place in a few weeks' time. I also want to talk about the massive Pirates of the Caribbean update that's set to launch the night of semifinals and why it could change absolutely everything. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Let's kick off talking about all of the drama with all the new teams in regular competitive Fortnite and all the snake-innings in ESL. So if you guys somehow missed it, there is a $1 million LAN event taking place in a few weeks in Riyadh, the Esports World Cup. It's the 4v4 game mode. You've probably seen some clips of Capture the Flag, Hardpoint. That's what that is, in case you guys have missed it. One of the different things about ESL is how they're handling qualification. We just had our online qualifications to get the last teams from around the world qualified to the Esports World Cup. But instead of the individual players being qualified, it was actually a slot that went to their team. So what this means is teams were able to agree to drop one of their players if they chose to, even after qualifying. The first team to do this was Exet. We had Muzz, Ritual, Trashy, and Edgy, and as a team, apparently they chose to drop Trashy from the roster and instead picked up Cold. Now, Exet just beat out Man City to secure their qualification spot and winning the entire event for the online qualifiers. So Exet, even with Trashy, was doing phenomenally well, but a lot of people, myself included, had eyes on Cold, wondering which team was going to pick him up, because Cold has been one of the strongest ESL players, and him not going to Riyadh would have been very surprising. A newer team was going to look to pick him up. I didn't know it was going to be Exet, which has been the best team so far in the online qualifiers on NA. Now, a lot of drama came out of this, and it's very hard to follow the narrative. There was a lot of rumor of a lot of players saying on the Exet team that it was the three players, Muzz, Edgy, and Ritual, that chose to drop Trashy due to performance issues, thinking they could do better with Cold, and a bunch of other stuff around it. Apparently, Clicks, the co-owner of Exet, wasn't in this decision whatsoever. Obviously, Clicks being Clicks, a lot of drama and a lot of attention went his way. He addressed the situation, saying it was the decision of the players, it wasn't his decision, and he just wants what's best for his team to do well at ESL. Now, it has since come out that Trashy is going to still be going to Riyadh under Exet. He is still being compensated. We don't know how much, but they didn't just drop him and now he makes nothing after playing with the team for a few months. A lot of players still saying this isn't good enough. He played for a few months. It's his spot. He deserves to be able to compete, but Trashy has come out now on social media saying that he's happy with the situation. He's going to be helping Exet prepare for the event and getting them ready for the LAN event. So that one looked like it wasn't too bad in the end. Everyone seems to have ended up happy, and I think that came a lot from Exet and how they handle it, still giving him some kind of financial compensation for his effort. Now, that obviously led to a bit more drama down the line with some of our regular Fortnite teams. Trashy has now since split with Muzz for FNCS semifinals. I'll get to that in a second. But then the other player to get dropped from their ESL roster is actually Veno. Veno got dropped from the Carmine Corp roster and instead got replaced with Anas. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, because Anas played for the Carmine Corp roster at DreamHack Dallas, where they qualified, but he only did that because Swizzy wasn't able to actually go and attend the event because he had visa issues. So Anas stepped in, qualified them, and then he stepped out. Now Veno has been replaced with Anas. Now, it looks like, as far as I've heard, Veno hasn't been given any compensation for this. I don't know, maybe I've missed it on social media. If I have, I apologize, but it looks like it's a different situation where Veno has just been dropped and he will not be attending. Now, this one is also a bit of a tougher one, because since Veno moved from EU to NA to be able to play with Clicks, he hasn't been able to practice with his team. The other three members are Europe based, so he would have to compete and practice with them on like 150, 200 ping, and it looks like that wasn't really happening. So it makes a bit more sense why Veno was dropped, but obviously after qualifying with his squad, he is still going to be very, very upset. Now, I want to present both sides of this situation. Obviously, there's a lot of people saying that even if they're compensated, that's still not fair. They qualified as a team. The players deserve to go for their spot. They deserve to be able to play at the LAN event and get whatever comes to them. And I also understand other people saying that this is just like a traditional esport where players can be dropped. Again, if you look at Valorant, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, games like that, teams will qualify, but then it's at the discretion of the team to be able to drop a player if they want to. For whatever reason, they're not performing well, they're not gelling well with the team, or they have to sub them out for whatever reason, they end up replacing them. Now, I will mention though, Fortnite and regular esports are obviously very different in the way that salaries work. If you're signed to a Valorant team and you play with them for 4 months, you're going to be compensated hopefully somewhat well within your salary. The salary is a lot higher because the price prize pool is a lot lower, where Fortnite, as we all know, most of the players aren't actually signed to orgs, and mostly they're just competing for prize pool, and that's it. So I don't know the specific situation of what Trashy or what, Veno's salary was like, but it is to be expected they were probably making less money from that 4 months of representing the org than what they would have made at Riyadh. Again, it's a $1 million prize pool. So maybe it's a prize split. Maybe Trashy is still going to get a percentage of the earnings based on things. I don't know the specific situations, but I did want to clarify that and say that even despite this, there are people who are still quite upset and confused. All right, now let's talk about regular competitive Fortnite team swaps, because if you guys didn't know, it is in the rule book. You were able to actually switch teammates ahead of semifinals. You have to play with another player in your bracket. So if you qualified for lower bracket, you can drop your teammate and find someone else who's qualified for lower bracket. And also if you're in upper bracket, you can drop your teammate and find someone else who's in upper bracket. And that's led to some very last minute team swaps. First off, most notably is Muzz and Trashy. Now, a lot of people saw this coming when Trashy first got dropped from the exit roster, and it came out that apparently it was the joint decision of the other members of the squad. This is now obviously going to lead some kind of awkwardness with Trashy, who's playing with Muzz as his official duo. He's gonna be like, bro, you didn't think I was good enough to play with you. You'd rather play with Cold. Well, why are we competing together? Again, they're extremely different game modes. There can be a lot going on behind the scenes, but I wasn't the only one who thought that might be a little bit awkward, and it looks like it was. Trashy decided to drop Muzz and is instead going to be playing with Threats. Now, if you didn't know, Threats was playing with Epic Whale, which now means Epic Whale is without a duo, and that is now Muzz. So two of the new duos is Muzz and Epic Whale, who are still going Lavish Lair, and Trashy and Threats, who look like they are going to be going Pleasant, which was Trashy and Muzz's drop. We have had some other team swaps as well. The two other new big teams worth mentioning is we now have Scented and Chubbs, and we have Hound and Skittles. Now, it's interesting to see how these teams have played out. I will mention we did just have the duo Cash Cup opens, and the only team to qualify out of these new teams is Trashy and Threats. Now, Muzz and Epic Whale were doing extremely well. They're in the top 20 after a few games. I was following it. Muzz is my boy. I wanted to see how this new duo was looking, and then things went a little bit south. I will mention, again, this is in the defense of Muzz and Epic Whale, people pointing, oh, Muzz, you're an idiot. You should have never done this to Trashy. They ended up going down 3 times to a cheater. If you guys haven't seen it, in first place, we have a team that is just, you guys know me, I don't really call out and try to do the witch hunt when it comes to cheating, but we have 2 players who have basically dialed the aimbot up to 11 and are dropping ridiculous amounts of kills in every single game. Again, I won't call people out as cheaters unless I have really solid evidence. Go watch any of their games. It is insane. The reason why it's so ridiculous, though, is this team has now placed in multiple tournaments. We have them actually getting earnings from solo victory cups while, again, very clearly cheating and still continuing to cheat, and they are still not banned. This one has been the most ridiculous I've seen a cheater get away with something for so long. Again, everyone always talks about, oh, every pro's cheating and they're always in DMAs and no one can detect it, but this is straight up full-blown cheating. Like, Epic would have to be so blind to watch any of this gameplay and think, yeah, this is normal. This guy with 3 events played just has really good aim all of a sudden. So it was a bit of an issue, and it did affect a lot of our big teams coming into our last chance to qualify for the last set lobby before semifinals. And again, it wasn't just Muzz and Epic Whale that ran into this duo. There was a lot of teams that had their chance of making finals ruined by this team, unfortunately. Despite this, however, the NA finals are actually looking extremely stacked. If you just look again at this top 10, it's a who's who right now of NA. It is looking like we have some really good teams making it into finals, one of which I want to obviously focus on the most, Mr. Savage and Mongrel, making their second set lobby of the season, actually finally getting some set lobby practice right before semifinals. Now, this has an even bigger impact. I've talked about this a few times now. Mongrel and Savage at the start of the season were looking fantastic. I think throughout most of the season, they've still looked really solid, but only just missing out on finals. But even just missing out has a big impact. It's not just the practice, it's the fact that Mongrel and Savage have managed to not lock down their drop spot in most of the set lobbies. They're not going a crazy strong drop spot. They're trying to lock down a mythic PY. They're going the slum split just to the east of Redline Rig, but it's a good enough drop that's had a lot of other good teams like Edgy look for it because they're not there in the finals. Now that Mr. Savage and Mongrel are in the finals, they can start to try to stake down this drop, hold it down a little bit more coming into semifinals. And I hope this is going to be the start of the Cinderella run for this duo. When I say Cinderella run, I want to see this team make land. I know it's crazy. Do I truly think this team can pull off, a top 13, top 14? Because again, there's 10 spots up for grabs for land, and there's a lot of teams already qualified. I'm not sure. Do I think they can make grand finals? 100%. I would be very surprised if this team doesn't make grand finals. They're looking solid. I think with Blood X, they'll have a great plan going into it, but it's going to come down to, do they get their drop spot uncontested? If they get to grand finals and they get this drop spot uncontested, I think we could see the Cinderella run and Mongrel and Savage make land. Mongrel is going to be participating in a LAN event in Chapter 5, but it's going to come down to the drop spot, and that's what scares me. They have not been locking down this drop spot, as this is their second time making a set lobby final all season. So I really hope they can pull something off, and a massive placement in the last Duo Cash Cup finals before FNCS would be a big statement and would help them lock down this drop spot. So fingers crossed they can pull it off. I did also want to give a special shout out to Aqua and Noah Riley, who won the EU Duo Cash Cup Opens. Obviously, two absolute legends from the OG days of Fortnite, still absolutely dominating and putting themselves at the top of the leaderboard. I want to see them do it in set lobbies. I would love to see, again, Aqua and Noah, names like that, making the LAN event as well. It's awesome to see that some of these big names can take breaks, like Aqua, usually due to injuries, come back and still absolutely pop off in these tournaments. Speaking of FNCS semifinals, who's doing well, what's changing? Remember, we do have the Pirates of the Caribbean update coming out this week, actually coming out tomorrow. Now, you probably noticed that is the day before FNCS semifinals, and now there are some absolutely insane changes coming. We have Flint Knox being added back to the game, we have Treasure Chest being added back to the game, but we have Ship in a Bottle. Now, this is the leaked footage of how the item is going to work. Apparently, it's going to do 5,000 structure damage when you use this. It is absolutely absurd and one of the most insane looking items I've ever seen. So insane, I have complete confidence it will not be added into competitive Fortnite. There is no chance they add this item into competitive Fortnite, especially not the night of FNCS semifinals. I'm just so sure of it. If I'm wrong, it is going to be pure insanity, and it's going to be one of the craziest tournaments we've ever seen. Some of the other items like the Flint Knock and the treasure map could go in, but again, I doubt it. I think they will just keep it to pubs. But one thing that will change massively for competitive is the map. We had this video leaked of what the new POI is going to look like in the middle of the map for the Pirates of the Caribbean update, and it is ridiculous. A big, massive pirate ship being added to the map with a whole bunch of loot and a whole bunch of craziness around it. Also, it's probably going to have the cannons we had back during the Chapter 1 ship, if you remember, at Lazy Lagoon, which will be so strong for mobility. Maybe they'll have just the ship but not the cannons in competitive, I don't know, but quite often these map changes will go into competitive. It would be a big statement from Epic to have the map changes not go into competitive. So either way, teams like Rise and Ages, who are dropping the middle of the map, have already claimed this POI before it's in the game. It looks absolutely ridiculous, and this will have a big impact on semifinals. I'm sure of it if it does go into the game, which I'm almost positive it will. Speaking of updates, it doesn't affect competitive at all, but I did want to talk about Reload, everyone's favorite game mode right now and the savior of the season for a lot of people, getting its first update. And so far, looks like a really solid update. They added the Mammoth Pistol, which I've always found really fun. It's extremely strong, super OP in my opinion, but again, it's Reload. Who cares? You just respawn anyway. But a change a lot of people are asking for was getting rid of the lever shotgun. It is almost impossible to find the pump shotgun consistently in Reload, but if you verse someone with the gold spaz and you had the lever, it was so frustrating. But they've now replaced it with the thunder shotgun, which I think is a much stronger, more balanced, more fun shotgun around the board. There are some other weapon changes as well, but I mostly wanted to talk about this because it means that Reload is going to be a consistent game mode that Fortnite is going to be paying attention to and updating and improving as it goes, which I think is massive for the game going forward. I think in a season that's a lot more popular, again, next season being Marvel season, I don't know how many people will, get into playing Reload as much, because hopefully they're just enjoying the regular Battle Royale. But for seasons like this, or even just when you hit that kind of, mid-season slump where everything feels a little bit boring, you're kind of over it, Reload is a great way to go back to. Or again, a lot of people might just stick to Reload as their main game mode. It's got that OG nostalgia vibe. It's a lot more casual friendly. If your friends go down, they can get respawned. If you go down, you can get respawned. There's a lot of fun to it, and just like Call of Duty where they had Resurgence and Rebirth, some people just gave up on playing the regular Battle Royale and just spend all their time in that game mode. So it's awesome to see that Epic is already giving it solid quality of life changes, and I think pretty much everyone's happy about that.